تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. For the benefit of those who do not understand my native language, our khutbah for today is the importance of Salah. But first and foremost, give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beneficent, the merciful. We thank Him for His countless blessings and for guiding us to the path of Islam. We bear witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His final messenger. My brothers and sisters in Deen, today I want to remind us about the importance of Salah, the second pillar of Islam. Salah is the most important act of worship in Islam, and it is the key to success in this life and the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it clear to us that He created us for the purpose of what? Of worshiping. He created us to worship Him and not for any other thing. He told us in Surah Al-Dhariyat, chapter 51, verse 56, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. He said, and I did not create the jinns and mankind except to worship me. So Allah has made it clear to us that the main reason why He created us is to worship Him. So if you are a believer, if you exist on this earth and you do not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have not fulfilled the main reason why you're on earth, then it means you are just wandering about on the surface of the earth. Because Allah made it, He said He did not create us for any other reason except to worship Him. So my brothers and sisters in Deen, and one of the ways we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to observe Salah. In fact, Salah is the first form of worship and the most important form of worship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it known to us how important Salah is. He told us in Surah Taha, chapter 20, verse 14. He told us, He said, Innani ana Allah la ilaha illa ana fa'budani. لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني وأقم الصلاة لذكري. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that إنني أنا Allah. He said, indeed I am Allah. لا إله إلا أنا. There is no one worthy of worship except me. Then He said, فاعبدني. So worship me. وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ. He said, and establish what? Prayer. That is regular prayers. لِذِكْرِ, for my remembrance. Meaning, if you want to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you establish prayer. You stand up to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is for you to understand how important it is. He said, إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهُ. That certainly He is Allah. Then He said, وَلَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا. He said, no one is worthy of worship except me. Then He said, فَعْبُدَنِي, so worship me. So before He even told you to worship Him, He first told you who He is. That He is Allah. Then He said, nobody is worthy of your worship except Him. Then He said what? So worship me. Then how are you going to worship Him? Then He said what? وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ. He said you should pray. Look at the way Allah put His words. He started by telling you who He is. That He is Allah. Then the next thing He said what? He said, no one is worthy of your worship except Him. Then the next thing He said is what? He said, so worship me. Then He told you how to worship Him. He said what? You should observe your Salah as a form of remembrance. To remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Salah is very important. And nobody is worthy of your Salah except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why you shouldn't play or joke with your Salah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it known to us in a verse of the Quran that Salah prohibits immorality. He told us in Surah Al-Ankabut, chapter 29, verse 45. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب وأقم الصلاة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, أتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب. He said, recite to them, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, recite to them, من الكتاب أوحي إليك من الكتاب. What has been revealed to you from what? From the book. وأقم الصلاة, and establish regular prayer. He now said, Inna salata. He said, certainly, as-salah, inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. He said, certainly, or indeed, as-salah, the prayer, tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar, is what? It prohibits immorality and wrongdoing. It prohibits immorality and wrongdoing. Because when you are somebody who observes salah, you will avoid so many bad things. Allah says, do not drink alcohol. Because you know that you are going to observe salah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will avoid those things. Because you know the consequences of you taking them. It will affect your dua. It will affect your supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will affect your worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for that reason, you will avoid them. Because you don't want anything that will affect your worship. So salah is a way, or it is a means to prohibit immorality and wrongdoings, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated in this verse. Then he said, وَلَا ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. He said what? He said, and the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater. Allahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. And he said what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware or knows what you do. So in this noble verse of the Quran, Allah is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to read to us. He said, "Utlu ma uhiya ilayka." Read to them what has been revealed to you, min al-kitab, from the book. Wa aqim as-salah, and pray. Prayer is very important. Then Allah is now saying, "Inna as-salata." He said, certainly the prayer tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. It prohibits al-fahsha'. It prohibits immorality, wal munkar, and wrongdoing. Wala dhikrullahi akbar. And what? The remembrance of Allah is greater. Wallahu ya'lam ma tasna'un. And Allah is aware of everything you do. So it is very important for you as a believer to pray. There is no way you will call yourself a believer if you do not pray. What qualifies you as a believer is what? How constant you are with your salah. If you are in a community where people cannot testify that you observe salah, and you are a Muslim, when the day you die, it will be difficult for them to attend your janazah, because they don't have any evidence, any proof that you are a Muslim. They've never seen you in the masjid, in the community. You do not attend or contribute in any way towards development of the ummah, the Muslim ummah in that community. So when the time comes, they will begin to argue, they will begin to ask questions, they will begin to investigate. So save them the stress. Participate in ibadah. Come to the masjid, pray, observe your salah, so that when that time comes, there will be no need for them to ask questions. There will be no need for them to carry out investigations to know if you are a Muslim or not. My brothers and sisters, indeed, as-salah is very important. Let us try as much as possible to observe our salah as expected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also made it clear to us in a verse of the Quran. You see, the salah is a means of seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a means to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 45, He said, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. He said what? And seek help through patience and prayer. He said, seek help through patience and prayer. وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِينَ. But he said these two things that he said you should seek help through them. He said, وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ. He said they are difficult for some people. إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِينَ. Except those who are humble. Except those who are humble to their Lord, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, patience is difficult for those who are not humble. Salah is difficult for those who are not humble. But if you are humble to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will what? You will seek help through what? The prayer and patience. So prayer is, what it means is that if you see somebody taking his time, when it is time for salah, he goes find a masjid to go and pray, or he observes his salah wherever he is. It means that that person is humble to his Lord. It means that you give your Lord his due. You respect him. You worship him. It is just like when you want to know if somebody is respectful. When an elder passes by him and he what? And he greets them with respect, then you say he's what? He's humble. But when he doesn't give them the respect, when he's supposed to, you will say he's not humble. The same thing with Allah. If you do not worship him, then you are not humble. Because when you are worshiping him, you bring yourself down completely. You put your head down. Something that it is rare for you to do to anybody or for anybody. Maybe when people are addressing you, they are talking to you, they can't look at your face. But when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that face that they cannot look at, you are putting it down for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means that you are humble. So it is only those who are humble that will what? That they will what? They will observe their salah. And that's what Allah is saying that وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِينَ. It is difficult, but except for those who are humble. Some would even tell you, oh, I'm wearing the clothes I'm wearing is too expensive. I cannot go and pray I don't want you to get rough or something. But when you are humble, you will not care about that because you are more concerned about worshiping your Lord. Another thing is that we must understand as believers, salah is important, but make sure that you pray your salah on time and what? And with sincerity. We have people, yes, they pray their salah. They pray all the salah. Or probably they are negligent of the time of the salah and they are not praying with sincerity. So the observance of the salah would look like waste of time. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed curse on some people. In Surah Ma'un, chapter 107, verse 4 to 6, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. He said, so woe to those who pray. Woe to them. He's cursing those who pray. But he went further. He said what? الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. He said what? Those who are heedless of their prayer. They are not really praying that prayer with sincerity or with, they are not conscious. While praying, they are still doing other things. Necessity can make you do other things. But when it is not necessary, you are not expected to do other things while on salah. Or you have a small store that you run. So because you are praying in your shop, so people are coming, you should let them, they have to wait for you if they want to get product from you. But no, because you don't want to miss those customers. So while you're observing salah, you are using your head, your eyes, your hands, and everything to give them gestures. Or you observe your Salatul Fajr today, and you do not observe any other Salah until the following day, when it is time for Subuh, you observe Subuh, then you observe yesterday's Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha, then followed by today's Subuh. Then you leave it again. Throughout the day, you will not pray. You wait till the next day. Then you pray your yesterday's Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha. Then the Subuh for that day. Then you leave it again. As a believer, you are not supposed to do that. You should try as much as possible, to at least pray the Salah within their time. It is very, very important. But we have people who don't really care about that, which is not good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala went further in the next verse, said, الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ. So those people that Allah is talking about, the فَوَيْلُ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, that woe unto those who pray. That he said, الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ, those who are heedless or mindless of their salah. Then he said, الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ. He said, those who pray because of show off. Some people are not praying because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are praying because they want people to praise them that they pray. That is why you only see them in the masjid on certain days. Sometimes you see them only on Fridays. Some you see them, maybe there's somebody they want to meet in the masjid, very important person, and they know he will come to masjid on that day. Then you see them there. Or because they want to prove a point to people. Do not be somebody who prays because of people. Pray because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because they are not the ones that will reward you for the salah. They are not the ones that ask you to pray the salah. They will only praise you. Oh, mashallah, you pray. Mashallah, you observe your salah. But they will not give you the reward for the salah. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can reward you for the salah. And He is the only one that can accept or reject your salah. So why are you praying because of people? Why are you observing salah because of people? So showing off that you pray is not beneficial to you at all. So as a Muslim, as a believer, avoid a situation like that. And Allah continue to guide us. The Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith too, how important the hadith is. In a hadith that was narrated by Abu Huraira, he said, Prophet ﷺ said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أول ما يحاسب به العبد يوم القيامة من عمله صلاته فإن صلحت فقد أفلح وأنجح وإن فسدت فقد خاب وخسر. In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was reported to have said that the first action for which a servant of Allah will be held accountable on the day of resurrection will be his prayers, his salah. Then he said, if you observe the salah, that's if his salah is complete, you observe his salah, فَإِنْ صَلُحَتْ. He said if you observe his salah, he said if they are in order, then what? He will have prospered and succeeded. But if the salah, if the salah is lacking, if they are lacking, and he did not pray as expected, then he will what? He will have failed and lost. So my brothers and sisters, in this, salah is very important. Your salah is like a key. Every other righteous deed you do is like precious jewels that you keep in a box. And the only way you can access the box is what? You can open what is in the box is what? Is with your key. So if you don't have your key, there is no way you can access what is in the box. Meaning if you do not have salah, every other righteous deed you've done is a waste. So you must make sure that you strive that you have salah, because the salah will be the key that will be used in opening where you keep those precious jewels of yours. So salah is very important. If you do not observe salah on the day of resurrection, then it will look like you come with a box, but you did not come with the key to open it for them to see if you have truly done well or not. But if you observe your salah on that day, it will be easy to check every other good deeds that you have done. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who will find it easy to observe salah. The Prophet ﷺ also told us in a hadith how important observing salah is. In that hadith, the hadith was narrated by Jabir. In that hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was reported to say, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, Prophet ﷺ, قال إن بين الرجل, he said, وَبَيْنَ الرَّجُلِ وَبَيْنَ الشِّرْكِ وَالْكُفْرِ تَرْكَ الصَّلَاةِ. In this hadith, the Prophet was reported to have said that verily between a man and idolatry and unbelief is what? Abandoning the prayer. That is, if a man, what makes a man to be far from idolatry, to be far from idol worshipping, and disbelief is that what? He observes Salah. The moment somebody stops observing Salah, they are very close to idolatry, they are very close to disbelief. And that is why when people know that you are somebody who will observe prayer very well, you are somebody who is a conscious Muslim, they won't take you to certain places. They will never bring some ideas to you. But if they know that you don't observe Salah, that's why they will tell you, let us go and see this also person. They have solutions to your problem. But if they know that you're somebody who observes Salah, who is very conscious of their Salah, who is somebody who worships Allah as expected, it will never come to their mind to introduce something like that. In fact, they will feel ashamed to introduce something like that to you. But they do not meet you in the masjid. They do not see any sign of a believer, of a Muslim in you. It will be easy. If you cannot pray, I know where to take you to. So my brothers and sisters, indeed, let us try as much as possible to observe Salah. Because when you do not observe Salah, according to the Prophet ﷺ, then you are closer to being an idol worshipper. You are closer to being an unbeliever. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from that. My brothers and sisters, indeed, we must know that Salah is very important. Another thing is, try as much as possible to observe Salah in Jama'ah. Most especially as men, because it is more beneficial to you. The Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith, he says, Salatul Jama'ah تفضل صلاة الفذ ب27 درجة. He said, Salatul Jama'ah. He said the prayer that is prayed in congregation, تفضل صلاة الفذ, is what? Is more beneficial, or has more benefit, or has more reward. ب27 than the one that you prayed in what? Alone. ب27 درجة. That what? It is 27 times better and more rewarding than the one you prayed alone. So always make effort to pray with the Jama'ah, because it is more beneficial to you. When you have the opportunity, if for example Allah is rewarding everybody who observes Salah 1,000 reward, and you pray with the Jama'ah, you are going to get 27,000 reward. So if you have a place where you can get 27,000 reward daily, in fact 5 times a day, why will you go to a place where you get only 1,000 reward? So that is why it is also very important that you pray Salah in congregation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. And one thing is, Salah gives the mind peace. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the verse of God, Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. He said that it is in the remembrance of Allah that the heart finds rest. So if you are somebody who observes Salah, it is a source of what? Peace of mind for you. It is a source of blessing. Salah is a source of blessing. And that is why when you are calling the adhan, you say, Hayya ala al-falah. Come for success. May Allah make us among the successful ones in this world and in the hereafter. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم الجليل يذكركم واشكروه على آلائه ونعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون قوموا إلى الصلاة يرحمكم الله.